Divorced Dad Diaries, day 194 and 195. It's Labor Day and I'm staying home and baking some Halloween sugar cookies with the kids using this Halloween baking kit that I picked up from Kmart. So first off, we have to head over to New World. It was actually my ex's birthday on Saturday. She's over in Queenstown. The kids said I needed to get her something. I asked them what I should get her and they suggested flowers. So I made sure to pick these up while I was at New World too. From there, we're grabbing some white chocolate, I'll explain what that's for later, as well as some icing sugar, some eggs, and food colouring. Specifically, I wanted orange, but they didn't have orange, so I thought if I grab yellow and red, maybe I'll be able to mix them to make orange. We'll see how that goes. And some chocolate chips, which I figured I could use for decoration. So this kit includes a couple different silicone molds as well as some cookie cutters. There's 4 cookie cutters, so 1 per child. And in terms of the actual silicone molds, I want to use the smaller one and make some like chocolates out of them. We'll see how that goes. So the recipe I'm using today is from a website called Sally's Baking, and it might be one of my favourite recipes I found online because everything was measured out in grams, which just makes, measuring the ingredients out so much easier. So we're going with 170 grams of butter and 150 grams of sugar. First off, we're making sugar bikkies today, so we're just going to cream that together. Make sure to teach your kids responsible knife skills while you're at it.
Don't cut yourself!
Like this? No! And of course, once I've got all that room temperature butter cut into small pieces, I chuck the rest of the sugar in there. Once that's creamed together, I'm chucking in the 2 teaspoons of vanilla essence as well as the egg. Giving that a real good mix. Make sure you don't go too hard and spill it everywhere.
And we might flip over the cup. I don't want fly on the ground. Some of them flew on the ground. That's why you don't drive so fast.
Next, we're on to the 281 grams of flour. Yes, very specific, I know. And if you want to be specific with measuring, make sure you actually zero out your measuring cup before you start putting flour into it. Otherwise, you have to put your flour back in the bag and then zero out your measuring cup. But anyway, half a teaspoon of baking powder, lightly mix that together, and then we're going to knead it. So I'm going to separate this out into 2 batches. I am following the recipe, and that is what they recommended this time. Good on you, Daniel, learning from your mistakes. But you see, I don't have a rolling pin. I keep going on and on about an offset spatula and forgetting about the fact that I don't have a rolling pin, and now I need a recipe that requires a rolling pin. So my oldest son has a metal Minecraft bottle, and I thought, you know what, that'll probably do the trick. So fortunately, I thought of this in advance, not advanced enough to go out and buy a rolling pin while I was in town, but advanced enough that I sanitized it. The dough did stick to it, but after rolling it down with some flour, it was okay. And then from there, the dough kept getting stuck to the bench, so I had a hard time trying to get it off, but I knew from training, just roll it over the rolling pin, or I guess metal bottle in this case. And then we are chucking them both into the fridge to cool down for a couple of hours. And this will just help it retain its shape when we then put it into its cookie shapes. So while that was cooling down, I decided let's try and do these chocolates. Effectively, all I wanted to do was just to melt down some white chocolate and then push that into the molds and mix it with some food colouring. Easy peasy, really not much to it. So I opened up the white chocolate block, took out half the white chocolate, and then just started melting it down in 30-second bursts in the microwave. I very quickly discovered that it wasn't going to be enough, so I ended up breaking off the rest of the block and melting down the whole block. And once that was melted, we then came in with the food colouring. I wanted this to be like a toxic orange, really bright. So I thought a lot of food colouring, right? 1/4 teaspoon of yellow, 1/4 teaspoon of red. Of course, I forgot a very basic principle about melted chocolate, and that's that it hates moisture, so it immediately seized up. And then I was like, oh crap. I messed this one up, didn't I? So, time to boil the jug. Yes, melted chocolate hates a little bit of moisture, but it seems to like a lot of moisture. That's how you make a ganache. So what we're doing is we're just putting teaspoons of boiling water into the chocolate, which, yes, is going to water it down, but it should hopefully bring it back to a more chocolatey texture. A few teaspoons later and some very vigorous whisking, and I got something that kind of resembled melted chocolate, enough that I could then push it into the molds. I've never done anything like this before, so I immediately was aware that there was probably going to be air bubbles just by the way that the chocolate was bubbling up. But again, I didn't really care, so get them in there and then get them in the fridge. While that's cooling down the fridge, now it's time to return our attention back to the pastry. Got those out, and with a bit of guidance on when and where to cut, the kids then went about cutting out all their shapes. They all got one cookie cutter each, which made it really easy because then they could count exactly how many cookies each they were going to have. Having that little bit of ownership just prevents those arguments later down the line when they're trying to count how many cookies each child has had. And with those offcuts, I then combined those together, rolled them back out again, and made sure to get as many cookies as possible for the final product. And what we ended up with was 6 cookies each, so about 24 cookies overall. And those went into the oven at 10 minutes at 180 degrees. Now, while those are cooking, now it's time to try the chocolate. They all set pretty well, although they did have a bit of a waxy texture. But this first one, I accidentally spilled white chocolate in while I was mixing it, and it has this cool marble effect. So, really like that. In terms of the flavour, surprisingly not watered down too much. It did just kind of just taste like white chocolate though, and in my opinion, white chocolate is the worst chocolate. Where's the chocolate? It's just sugar. It's just sugar and cream. That ain't chocolate. Anyway, that's a debate for another time. They weren't too bad. By the time we're done with that, now we're back to the cookies. Take those out to cool down, and while they cool down, I'm going to do some icing. In terms of icing, we've just decided that I'm going to do a white icing and an orange icing because we have pumpkins. And I did ask them who wants to be orange and who wants to be white. And funnily enough, my oldest daughter, who picked the pumpkins, decided she wanted to be white because there is such thing as white pumpkins. So we're now going to have a white pumpkin, a white ghost, and then orange bats and orange ghosts. And all this is just a really basic icing sugar with water, and that's it. I haven't done anything fancy today. From there, I've left kids in charge of decorations, so they're going to decorate their own cookies, and I've given them the chocolate chips, which they can use to make faces, and we can now see the final products. All of the kids were stoked with their cookies and their little faces that they made. I thought they looked great. I asked them for a 1 cookie donation each as dad tax, and the cookies were actually pretty good. Pretty nice and easy sugar bikkies. Not too firm, a little bit soft. The icing was nice. Overall, really enjoyed them. And then the kids went back to their mums on Tuesday when it was snowing, as you can see. And I will catch you dreaming of a white Halloween on the flip side.